on one more person.
Okay.
Unless any of these, just the ones that are phone numbers. Are there any committee members calling in over the telephone? I guess that's a no.
Okay. Let's go ahead and start the Environmental Achievement Awards discussion. And then we will come back to calling the meeting to order and adopting the minutes. Is that okay with you, Laura?
You're muted, Laura.
I saw that right as you said it. Like, I'm just talking to myself again because nobody is in the office. It's just me all alone. So Environmental Achievement Awards are coming up quickly. I figured I would share the application next meeting since it is still before Earth Day. I think we usually try to launch that somewhere around Earth Day. But given that it is coming up quickly, we have been using these lovely, fabulous Environmental Achievement Awards for a very long time now. And I just wanted to see if that was still what the committee wanted to do. So we could, if we are going to change, we can get some ordered. And if we're not going to change, we can get some ordered.
Okay with me.
So I didn't know if you guys were looking to change it up, maybe do something out of like something recycled, or I mean, they're gorgeous pictures and we've got a lot of turnover in city staff. So it's probably going to be similar to where it was before. So nobody's necessarily going to have the old ones. So.
I think that pictures are really nice because I feel like it's something that people would be proud to hang under any circumstances, and might even after retirement like having in their home. And you know, it's not the same as a plaque. So that would be my take on it. Anybody else want to weigh in?
I've always liked them. But I guess, Laura, if you had some vision of some alternatives to sketch out, then we could look at that, like a cool little scrap metal sculpture or something. I don't know if you had anything.
Nope, I actually didn't have any ideas. I just figured it was about time that if I was going to ask, I should go ahead and ask so we could get it done. I didn't want it to come back like June and then everyone's like, oh, you know, it'd be great is if we could do like some glass plaques. And I'm like, I can't order these in time. So just trying to be proactive on that one.
Can I assume there's an adequate supply?
Well, I don't know. If we've got 1,000 great environmental things going on in the city with the staff, then we might be in trouble. But I'm assuming we probably have an adequate supply right now to get through this next one at least. And Nate, I think, makes quorum, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Okay, that's great. Well, let's officially call this to order, but we'll continue on the current discussion. Unless I hear a motion otherwise, I think we'll just go ahead with what we've done in the past. Is there anyone who would like to move to do something different? All right, I think we will just be happy to have what we've had before, Laura. I think they're really lovely. Are there other items of business you want to go over regarding the awards?
Not on my end, unless anybody on your side wanted to bring up anything.
Okay, let's go back to calling the meeting to order. I would like the commissioners to briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll have other people introduce themselves later in the meeting as they speak, if that's okay with you, Rachel?
Yes, that will work for me. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll start. Carol Adams, Commissioner.
Scott Clam, Commissioner.
Marty
DJ
Kraft.
Pierre, Commissioner.
Marty Kraft, Commissioner.
Nathan Madden, Commissioner.
Carol Mackin, Commissioner.
That's who we have so far, Carol. Carol A.
Okay, thank you. The next item of business is to review and adopt the January minutes. Are there any additions or corrections to the January minutes? If not, can I have a motion that they be approved as drafted?
This is Jerry Schechter. I submitted a correction.
Oh, good. Can you tell us briefly what it is?
Yeah, on the second page, the second bullet point down, it says, final plan is scheduled to go to city council in March for adoption, but it said it was written with an A instead of an O as adaption.
Hmm.
I have that corrected in my file to be posted online.
Okay, good. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
Okay, in a second. Come on,
Marty
wanna-
Kraft.
Second.
okay.
Second.
All the commissioners in favor, please indicate it. Can you raise your hand? Can you do the little raise hand icon? Okay, any opposed by the same sign? Okay, Rachel, it appears that they're approved.
Thank you, Carol.
All right, thank you. The next order of business is that we are getting a report on the climate protection and resiliency plan. And I think we're getting our first look through a presentation at the draft that is going to be the subject of public input over the next 30 days or so. Is that correct, Laura?
That is correct.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Laura for that presentation. Laura, you just tell us how you want to handle questions from commissioners. We can do it at the end if you prefer. Just let us know how you want to handle it as you go along, okay?
I have a PowerPoint, and Teams when I'm in the office doesn't necessarily allow me to see everything. So we can do at the end, if you really have something you want to mention or talk about, you can just go, hey, Laura, stop. Wait, I want to talk about this. I don't mind at all.
Okay, the other thing we can do is people can feel free to post in the chat. We'll try to keep an eye on that. And Rachel, if you will kind of alert me if there's a commissioner that has a hand up and I don't see it.
Sure, I will do that.
Okay, Laura, take it away.
Okay, sure. Well, first off, the draft plan documents, all of them are live, and they are live on our Playbook, KCMO Playbook site that we've been using for all of our engagement. In addition, the plan itself is an interactive document. So I just now posted a link to the plan in the chat. And so it's on an Adobe site. That's because it's Adobe Interactive. So it will live on that site pretty much during the entire draft period here. So you are welcome to open that up, take a look. It lets you know places where there are interactive pieces. There's also a downloadable version of the plan on the Playbook site as well. We've also put those on our OEQ site, which can be reached at www.kcmo.gov/climate. It's exactly the same as what's on our Playbook site. However, we're trying to drive comments to the Playbook site just because we can actually keep them in a database there so we don't get them all over the place. And I'll talk a little bit more about how we'd like to receive comments a little bit farther into this. And I'm going to go ahead and try to share my screen here and get us started on the presentation. It will let me start it from the beginning. All right. Can everyone see the draft plan slides?
Yes, we
Yes.
can, Laura.
Okay, great. All right, so I'm just going to start this like we have started every meeting that we've had both internally and with the public on this plan, and that is our commitment to equity on this. We have been using Brian Stevenson's equity guiding principles during our plan and during our planning process, just to keep us humble and understand that this is an ongoing process and it's not an easy process, and that there's just no quick fix to this. So we're working through it as best we can. So just an update. I'm going to give the commissioners, I know have seen some of the outreach and engagement updates, but since we have so many folks joining us today for this meeting, I'm going to give an update on the entire process here. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about our engagement phases. So outreach and engagement actually began back in 2021. It seems like forever ago, but also yesterday, with our phase 1 where we listened to community. And then phase 2, which started in September, was when we kind of collaborated, taking what we were hearing from community and what we knew we needed to move the needle on climate action in Kansas City, and sort of kind of putting the puzzle pieces together of where things were already happening and exploring ideas on how we could move the needle and get the word out better. In phase 3, we took all of those things that we were doing and all those strategies that we'd identified. We prioritized the strategies based on those that were going to really give us the biggest bang for our buck on climate action so we could meet our early goals, and also those that align with the goals of the neighborhoods in Kansas City and the stakeholders that we spoke with. And then phase 4 Mobilize just started. We are a little bit behind. We were hoping to have the plan for adoption to council this month, but the CPSC wanted a little more time so that they could break into some working groups for each of the areas of the plan and kind of just really get down nitty gritty and discuss things that they thought needed to be changed or included that weren't necessarily there. So we gave them a little bit more time for that, and then some time to incorporate those things that we could incorporate. We are still incorporating Climate Protection Steering Committee goals throughout this engagement period here, this month-long engagement process, because some of the things that were suggested, either we needed more information on how to incorporate, or some of them we're going to have to reach out to city staff to see feasibility, and legal department to see if that's something we would include in a plan, those kind of internal process things that we have to do. And since city staff, everybody's seeing this plan starting today at the same time, so they need some time to process as well. So this plan will be evolving over the next 30 days based on public comment as well as comment from stakeholders, experts, and city staff. Here's just a little bit of highlighting our engagement process. We had over 60,000 total impressions. That's visits to sites, interaction with various social media that we've put out on the plan. And then we had an online survey that went out. We actually had several surveys that went out through this process, and we had 150 respondents to that. We had topical workshops that had about 150 participants. We're super excited about all the folks that shared their stories on their climate stories on the project website. And that piece, though stories shared at this point are not going to be included in the plan, we are still listening throughout this entire process up till 2040 as the narrative changes through technology and needs of the public. So people are welcome to still share their stories on the project website, on the Bang the Table site, and then also share their, we have a climate action map on there where people can identify issues of opportunities and places where we're doing great climate things, they're seeing things they want to see more of, and places where we're having big issues, like this area floods, or this area is a high heat area that needs to be addressed. So we can continue to incorporate that into our process as we go forward. In addition, we had 70 one-on-one community conversations that occurred either with our climate justice workers or city staff with members of community directly on what they are feeling are the biggest issues when it comes to climate. And then 6 public workshops that were not topical work group specific, but were just more getting people's strategies overall for the plan with 90+ participants in that. So during that first phase, we just asked folks what was of the greatest concern and how climate change is affecting their lives. And during that time, you can see, I'm not going to read them all off, but you can see sort of what we did to engage people at that time. That was the very beginning. We were just getting our climate justice workers on board, and they pretty much hit the ground running and headed out to talk to community. And that's also when we launched the Playbook site on Bang the Table. For those that are not familiar with the Playbook site, that is the same site that hosts the city's comprehensive plan, which is updated right now. And if you are interested in climate action, I suggest that you get input into that plan as well, because that is the plan that runs and kind of shapes the entire city and how it develops going forward. So it's a very important plan. And we did that specifically so that we could kind of share space with them. They have people signing up for their plan that probably wouldn't necessarily sign up to commit to talking about a climate plan, but they're getting the newsletters as well. And so we got some folks that we may not have been able to engage otherwise through that process. In phase two, that collaborate and explore phase, we pretty much asked what types of climate action strategies would you like to see happen citywide and in your neighborhood? And we engaged people throughout areas of the city. So we held workshops, one online and in person for each area of the city, one for North, one Central, and one South. Of course, people could attend any workshop they wanted. If they didn't live in that area, we tried to align what was said with their particular area where they live, work, or play. And also we presented this process with the folks from Climate Action KC, I think Tom Jacobs, who's on this call, and Michael Kelly, to a council business session, kind of talking about both plans and how they're the same and how they're different and how they're all moving the needle on climate action in Kansas City. During that third phase, we ask what climate action strategies should we prioritize and how would you like to help? So at this point, we started identifying those organizations and even just those residents that really wanted to be involved in this process so that we could start to get a kind of listing going of the groups for when we actually do start implementing this plan, which hopefully is going to be starting right out of the gate in April. We've already got a list of folks that want to be involved and what particular areas they want to be involved in. So we can kind of hit the ground running with that group and allow that group, as we're developing strategies and programs and policies, to also identify other groups in that area. And so you can kind of see the things we did in that during that prioritize and align phase. That was also when we had our stakeholder strategy meetings, where we took all the strategies that community had mentioned to us and the actions that they wanted to complete. And we talked to city staff and people throughout some of our stakeholder groups, including our utility companies and Kansas City ATA, Mid-America Regional Council, those folks, and just said, this is what they want to do. What are we already working on? What can we prioritize now because we have the ability, staff, whatever, to do it? What is going to come a little farther down the road just because the technology or the funding or the staff isn't there at this point? Just to kind of get our initial implementation plan and framework. And here we are now. We are in the beginning of the Mobilize phase. The Mobilize phase actually runs all the way through our 2040 goal of climate neutrality for Kansas City. And so what we're asking of folks right now is to look through the plan and find your questions. How can we make this plan more accessible and easily understood by community and stakeholders? And then also helping to identify those organizations and individuals and neighborhoods that can be part of implementation. We know, like with any city plan that happens, you have some people that show up really early in the beginning, and you have some people that don't show up till the very end and are ready to get involved, but maybe hadn't been involved up till now. So we really want those groups to come forward and people to kind of self-select those groups, or even just let us know groups that we may not have reached out to. And then what existing efforts are already going on and resources should we leverage? We have a city of 500,000 people, and we don't know everything that's going on. We try to, but that's a lot. So if there are efforts going on or resources out there that we may not know about, we're asking community and stakeholders to help us identify that during this period so we can really finalize our short-term implementation plan. And that short-term implementation plan is to get us to our 2025 goal. So I want to make sure when we're talking about this plan that we know that all the strategies in the plan are going to need to be included in order to reach our climate goals. And so, But as far as what we can implement now, what we need to really prioritize, get started on now, is going to be different than what's going to be a little bit down the line as technology changes and more funding and such becomes available. So we're asking to help let us know what's already out there that we can plug into, or that may not be directly climate related, but kind of aligns with some of the goals or areas of this plan that resonate with people. And so the how to share feedback, I'll talk a whole lot more about going forward, but just we have a little one in here so that people can see it. If they don't want to go through the whole process of reading this entire PowerPoint, which will also be online as well, there's a really easy, quick way to start sharing your feedback. With that, let's go ahead and just before I jump into plan, just orienting you guys to the plan, are there any quick questions from commissioners on what I presented so far? All right, the only one I can see is Marty, which is great because I love looking at Marty. So smile for me, Marty. There you go. All right. So just kind of managing expectations. What were the document objectives? What are the objectives of this plan? So we wanted to make it accessible to community. So using language that resonates with everyone, not jargon, not a lot of acronyms. But also make the plan technically credible. So we're using what we know is peer-reviewed best practice to kind of do our analysis, and then leaving space for assumptions that we've made to be checked as more research happens over time. Also, we want it to spur urgent action. This is happening now. It's going to continue to happen. It's going to continue to get worse. So we need to start moving now. And so part of this plan was to provide area-specific priorities, and we'll talk a little bit more about those areas so that people could really plug into something, a small bite to chew on something that really resonates with them, and not necessarily have to the overwhelmingness of tackling the entire plan. And as part of this, it's put under accessible up here, but I just want everyone to know that this plan is a living document. So it's going to adapt to changes in technology, the community, legislation that comes down from the federal and state level. And that's why, though we have a plan right now, and we have our strategy areas, which are always pretty much going to stay the same. Those are the strategies we need to reach our goals. The actions under those strategies are constantly fluidly moving. They can be adapted at any time, and that's why we have implementation plans. So the short-term one is the one we have now, and then I'll be tasked in 2025 with working with community again to get the next 5-10 years of action plan going. So how is the plan organized? First off, we have an anti-racism and land acknowledgement. We feel this is important in an equitable plan to acknowledge that the space we're living on now was not always ours, and acknowledge that we have faced systemic racism issues in Kansas City, and those have changed the lives of some of the people that we work and live with in Kansas City. Thanks to the people that did the plan, and then the rest of it's kind of pretty much how most climate plans flow. You have an executive summary for the folks to read that really don't want to get into the weeds, and then kind of where we are now, what we need to do, and how we're going to do it. And then a glossary, of course, because there are a lot of climate terms. So when going through this, if there's anything that you look at that you're like, I have no idea what that means and it's not in the glossary, we need to know that so we can get it in the glossary for community. And then because we did want this to be technically credible, we do have all the work cited on how we got to this, as well as a lot of supplemental documents that also show how we got to this process. And then our appendix to the plan is the area summaries. So though we know we need all the climate action strategies to happen in all areas of the city, that area summary was just what we were hearing was really important to residents of various areas of the city. So we can help focus policies and programs in those areas where people are already really ready to move and mobilize on those certain things. So tips for reading the plan. So the first thing that anyone needs to do when reading this is become familiar with the 6 climate action areas. So we have the action areas and like mobility at the top, and then a small definition on what that means underneath it. Become familiar with those because we use a lot of just icons in places in the plan. So these particular icons that you see here in this circle for all of the 6 areas: mobility, energy supply, natural systems, homes and buildings, food and waste and materials will be seen throughout the plan, especially when we start looking at more tabled information. And then, of course, climate justice is still at the center of this with of the whole plan, with community resilience, financing and innovation, and community empowerment, also very important to moving these things forward. So as you're reading the plan, keep an eye out through the plan for the equity icon with the three little people here, and it says Our Equitable Future. That icon is throughout all of the action areas, and it's kind of the equity approach that we developed with our climate action team and the consulting team, which was made up of Brindle Group, which is a climate plan consultant that does this a lot out of Colorado. And then Sofix Solutions, a local equity and change management firm from here in Kansas City. And Stephanie Smith and our climate justice workers were integral to making this plan, kind of changing the narrative on this plan. So we moved forward on it from a way that honestly in our office probably we never would have thought of. So it was great having them on. And then also our community stories throughout the plan are all going to look very similar to this. They're going to have the little box with the quotes. And that's where we have our community highlights, where we actually heard from community members. Some of them are unnamed. And that's because during the planning process, in order to make this equitable, we did not want to force people to register for the Playbook site if they did not want to register. So sometimes people came on and left us their information, but didn't register for the site. So we didn't necessarily have their names. Sometimes they didn't register, but they did put their name in so that we could add that to the plan. Excuse me.
Laura,
Yes.
Jerry has a question. He wants to know if the icons used are similar or identical to those used in the regional plan.
That's a question I don't know how to answer. Tom, are our icons the same as yours? I don't think they're quite the same.
I'm not sure. They look similar, maybe a little different.
Yeah,
I'd have to go back and look.
I think they're a little bit different. I don't have that plan in front of me, and honestly, I've been staring at this one so long, I haven't looked at the regional one in a couple of months. So I'm not sure. I know there are different action areas. We have our financing and innovation as part of the kind of basic framework of our plan, whereas that is an area in the regional plan. So it may be a little bit different. Could be a good thing for somebody to check out. And I can check it out today. Okay, as far as tips for reading the plan, we also have in the plan a radar graph. This is not a graph that a lot of people are familiar with. I know I had never actually seen one in my field before this plan, but it is a really neat graph. So all of these, the letters W1, W2, F1, F2, those are all of the strategies that are going to be required in order to move the needle on climate equity and climate neutrality in Kansas City. So, and then the various colors in between are how the different areas of the plan contribute to our goals. So if there's a kind of an indentation, the center of this is 0. So that means there's that it's not helping this particular thing at all. The farther you move out towards the outside of the circle, that is the more impactful the strategy is. So as you look here, down here at the bottom, community co-benefits, which is the more turquoise color here, you'll see that the food strategies, of course, that's going to be high on community. So as far as climate resilience goes, we have some strategies, especially in natural systems and making our buildings more climate resilient, that are really, really going to be important for moving the needle. And then, of course, the items in just the medium blue here are our carbon emissions. So those are the strategies that are really going to help us reduce carbon emissions. When you go to the online plan, you can actually toggle these on and off to see how the different strategies fit. But this is how it shows we're going to move the needle on resilience, community co-benefits, which is kind of our equity piece, and then our carbon emissions with all of these strategies in the plan. All right, so when you are reading the plan, you get to explore how the strategy helps us achieve our goals. So this at the top, this is kind of the legend on how this works. So everything is kind of broken down into its greenhouse gas reduction potential, and that appears as a percentage. Then the resiliency benefits are also going to be there, and that's just kind of a yes or no. Is it going to help with resiliency or not? And then the co-benefit section have 4 icons here at the bottom on whether or not it's going to help us with economic recovery, carbon sequestration as a co-benefit, health and wellness, or environmental justice. So those will be highlighted in the plan here. So you can see I've given an example on strategy E1, increase the percentage of renewable energy in the utility grid mix. It shows here that, yes, that's going to give us a large greenhouse gas emission reduction. We consider anything more than 10% to be a large reduction. Is there a resiliency benefit to it? In this case, yes, there's very much to having alternate energy sources in the grid, so very much so. And then also health and wellness, and then environmental justice. Obviously, you know, we're not spewing coal out of a stack, then that's going to be good for air quality as well. So that's kind of what you'll see on each of the strategies. You'll see this little kind of table before you start reading about the strategy. Also, in the plan, we have partners, implementation partners on here. And these implementation partners, this is not the whole list. Obviously, they're in alphabetical order, and we cut off at K. So there's quite a few people that have already either been identified by stakeholders, city staff, or have self-selected to be part of this. So some of these folks sat through our strategy sessions with us and said, yes, we're going to work on this. I know Antioch Urban Growers right here at the top was just really involved in this process. And so who's going to help us implement this plan? This is a place we really want people to take a look and see if there's anybody missing from that list that's going to be really integral for moving the plan forward. Also, throughout the plan, because we did have the goal of empowering neighborhoods, we have these call out boxes as far as implementation strategies that we have been tried and true in other cities that have been really positive as far as empowering neighborhoods to take back climate justice on their own. So things like having community climate ambassadors that come from the community and that are out there working in community that can help us reach those systemically left out and misrepresented or ignored folks in previous climate work. Land banks and land trusts, obviously empowering communities to take back their properties for the uses that they want. So you'll see those throughout the plan as well, just kind of ideas as we move forward of what's working other places. And then the area summaries, like we said, we had meetings with each of the areas of Kansas City. So that that area summary allows you to explore the neighborhood level priorities. Again, like I said earlier, that does not mean we won't be implementing all strategies in all areas of the city, because we will need to implement them in all areas. But if a neighborhood really identified solar as something, you know, rooftop solar is something they wanted, then that's who we're definitely going to reach out to when we start, you know, a rooftop solar program, those kind of things. So that's, check out those neighborhood level priorities. It can definitely help when going to policymakers about change that needs to be made. And then we have all of our supplemental documentation that's, like I said, available on the Bang the Table site, the Playbook site. It's also available on our OEQ site. And so we have our engagement plan summary. That is a very large document that just shows the breakdown of all the engagement that we did. We did do a greenhouse gas inventory as part of this process. So there is a document there that kind of shows how we did that and how we can do it going forward. We're going to be trying to do that in-house going forward, so we can do it on a more regular basis in order to show that we are actually moving the needle through this process. We also did a community risk and vulnerability assessment as part of this plan, just kind of to figure out those areas of the city that we had more climate vulnerable populations. And so our methodology on that is also on there for people to review. And then the mitigation scenario. So that's how we're actually going to reduce the carbon. So that's all of the documentation on how we approach the methodology of how much carbon was going to be reduced by these actions. And then the final one is that short-term implementation plan. And we would like some eyes on that one. So if you don't have time or want to get into the other four, for the most part, those are pretty much done. They're just, this is how we did it. But the short-term implementation plan is part of that living document. And so that what that is that working document that's going to help us accelerate that plan implementation. And so it includes details for each action that was identified in the plan. And I'll show you what that kind of looks like on the next page. So we talked to people about timing of when it should be, equity considerations, and implementing that from lived experience and also from what's been heard from other cities, and then the steps to do it. So what we're asking from community and the commission is, our key partners missing again? We really need to make sure they're there. And are there other considerations that would help advance implementation of these actions that we may not have thought of or that didn't come up in our strategy sessions? So like I said, we didn't hear from everybody. We'd love to. So if you've got other things, please add them. And this is just an example of what one of those short-term implementation plan pieces looks like. So this is for action, mobility action 3.1, which is expand alternative transportation programs. Underneath that, we then kind of have a description of what that particular action means. So in this case, transit ridership, carpooling, telecommuting, and innovative work scheduling. Who's going to be implementing this? Rideshare KC stepped up to kind of be really involved in that. And then we are supporting partners. Of course, we're going to be doing transit. The Kansas City Transportation Authority needed to be involved. EDC was said that they need, or somebody suggested EDC needed to be involved as well. And then when we need to do it. So immediate, which means, and it says already underway, which means there's already people in Kansas City and groups working on this thing. So it's in process right now. And then the equity considerations that are here, if there's some equity considerations missing, please let us know when commenting on the plans. And then implementation steps or considerations. So what do we need to consider in implementation? We have not at this point set mode share targets. We're trying to make this a plan that we then work through, like I said, in the implementation process. So that's one of the things, consider setting those mode share targets. And if we do that, which we will probably need to do, we're going to need to do it with the support of the supporting parties and interested citizens as well that want to be involved. So setting those targets is going to take, once again, outreach and involvement from the community and stakeholders. Okay, any questions on that before I go on to our big ask? Okay. All right, so next steps in this process is the plan review and adoption timeline. So we would like to get public review in by April 12th. And so we're going to try to really move forward on that. If there's something small that comes in after that deadline, that's great. We just need to make sure that our consultant has time to get all of these things into the plan and get it back to the stakeholders that may have been suggested that need to be involved in that process. And then on April 25th, the Climate Protection Steering Committee will meet and they will approve the final plan at that point or make more suggestions. We're hoping we have it all fleshed out by then. And that way, if we can get it all done by April 25th, then we will present the final plan to council. We're hoping at a business session at this point. That's always tentative with when things work. The way things work at the city is staff requests a business session, but if the council has things going on at the business session already, that's not available. For some reason, the business session doesn't meet. That may mean that we don't get that. If we do not get to present the plan to council at a business session, then we will present all of the information that we need to in council committee. So the final plan will have to go to a council committee like everything goes through the city. We're not sure which committee will be tasked with this yet, but we can keep you posted on that as we move forward. When it's in council committee, that's when there's time for public testimony, support or not supportive of the plan. And then once it passes committee, then it will go on either advance due pass that week or the following week to full council. And at full council, that's when the council committee makes their recommendation on passing it. And then there's not time for public testimony. So public testimony should occur during that committee meeting. Now, of course, this is all tentative. This is our plan. This is what we're working towards. All right, so as far as the plan goes, how to access the plan documents and provide feedback. I've listed here that Playbook site. That's the main place to access it and provide online feedback. And I'm going to show you the site and what it looks like here in just a second. And then, of course, the documents, if you're just looking to get the documents, they are at our kcmo.gov/climate. You can grab the exact same documents there. We are also going to make limited paper copies available for folks that may not have online access or be able to view the plan that way or work with the plan that way. It's about 120 pages front. That's with front and back, 69 pages front and back, but it's book style, so it is a pretty large plan. We're hoping not to as a sustainability office, take down a lot of trees in order to do this. And then we're looking to set up places to view the plan. I know Jensen's not on here. The library is one of those that I'm reaching out to. If community has ideas of a good place that people could come in and view a paper copy of the plan that they would like to get it to, then we are definitely open for that as well. As far as providing your feedback and comments on the draft plan, there's several ways. So you can use the KC Playbook site. There's a plan comments button. It's kind of guestbook style. So anything you submit there, if you've got small changes, edits on just a particular section, that's a great place to do it. It's, you can just put in, a paragraph or so of what you'd like to put, and then you hit send. That's actually going to be public. So people will be able to see what you've put in there, which is actually really positive as far as a community perspective is concerned, because then, people will be able to go, oh, somebody's already suggested that, I can move on to something else. Or even elevate it and say, yeah, what that other person suggested is great. We really need that in. We're also asking for a plan name. There's an ideas button under the KC Playbook site. We do not want to spend the next 30 years saying climate protection and resiliency plan. If we can get a shortened name that makes this, that kind of gives a feel to the plan, gives a Kansas City flavor, we'd love to have your suggestions on that. And then we also have an ideas button for activating the plan. So that's who do we need to, how do you want to get involved? Do you know a neighborhood group that like to get involved, a church group that wants to get involved? How can we help activate this plan? If you have a lot of comments and you like to type, you are welcome to email those comments to the oeq@kcmo.org address. Please do not email city staff specifically. And I say that because we are a very small office with a very large email load. So I think I'm sitting about 250 unread in my inbox right now. I don't want that to happen. So this is kind of a clearinghouse where we can put everything and make sure nothing gets missed. So please email it to that particular address, which is all city staff have access to this email address. Not all city staff, I'm sorry. All staff in the Office of Environmental Quality have access to this email address. You can also email or call our office and just say, hey, I don't want to write all this. Can I just schedule a time for a 20-minute conversation with you guys to just kind of run through what I think needs to be done? And we can get that set up for you so you can actually talk to us on the phone. We don't want anybody to expect to be able to just call in and talk to somebody. We don't want to set that precedent because there's a lot of meetings going on and things like that as well throughout this process. And then we are asking people as well to share photos for the plan. If you've got photos of a specific area or specific people that are doing climate action that you'd love to get in the plan, we'd probably love to have it too. So you can send those photos to that OEQ email as well. Description of the photo, location, who to attribute it to, if make sure you've cleared it with the people that are in the photo. We'd love to have those to add to the plan. And then of course, we're hoping that you will give us your name and everything on that so we can credit you with it for sending it in. Okay. So just to kind of wrap up what we're asking, share your implementation ideas, share the plan title ideas, share your photos, and just share your feedback in general. So that's kind of the wrap up of everything that we're looking to do for the plan. And that's all I have. So are there any questions from commissioners at this time before I get back into the website? Either I put you all to sleep or that was really thorough.
Is there anybody that would like to ask Laura anything? Please raise your hand or just speak up.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank Laura and the entire group for all your work on this. I know you put a ton of time and effort into it, and it shows. And I mean, I think I probably speak on behalf of all the commissioners that, you know, we're just really grateful for everything you put into it.
Well, we're grateful for everything you put into it as well. So thank you for that. All right. So I'm going to real quick. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So this is Michael Kelly. I just wanted to echo DJ's comments. I know that there's still work to be done with regards to the public comment period and getting this over the finish line with the committee. But we do appreciate the work that you've done up to this point, and we look forward to working with you to get this over the finish line.
Thank you. I definitely appreciate all of the comments you guys have had, all the time you've put into this and helping get the word out to community about this. So as far as I brought up our our KC Playbook site. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so this is our main climate protection and resiliency plan playbook page. And for any of you that have been interacting with this site up until now, we have down here, we have buttons for each phase. So we have not, though we've closed the phases, we have not taken anything down from the phases. We've just closed the surveys so we don't get random surveys that people are expecting to get responses to, because we're not doing anything with those surveys at this point. So they're closed, but you can still go into any of the previous phases, look at what we did, read comments from residents and stakeholders that have put work into this plan so far. But every single page you go to is going to have this big button, this big thing here that says, hey, we're moving on. It's available for public comment. Please comment. And so that is here under our Mobilize section, which is where we are now. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to ask Michael Kelly, did that come up for you, the Mobilize page?
Yes, it did.
Okay. All right, great. So this is the page that we're actively working on right now. So here's where you could access that draft plan that I dropped in chat. That is the online interactive plan. We did note here that we recommend using the online version so you can have all the interactivity. However, over here in the important links, we do have a copy of the, oh, nope, it's not up yet. Oh yeah, it is. There's a more button. Okay. We do have a copy of the online plan that, or the just print version, Adobe print version of the plan. It's a pretty big document, which is why we're not emailing it to anybody, because it's about 35 megabytes, which doesn't email very well for most servers, and we don't want it to get lost. So you can view it here and download it. Also over here on the important links section is all of the other various appendices that I talked about for the plan that you can access here. Just like I said in my presentation, how to provide feedback is down here. I did put on here that we do suggest that you register for the Playbook site, just because if you register for the Playbook site, you put in an email address. Even if you don't choose to put any information, you can submit anonymously. We'll have your email address. So if you put something in here and it sounds like a really good idea, we just need a little more feedback or some clarification on something, we could email you to actually, you know, have that follow-up dialogue. So you are still, we're trying to make this very equitable, so you do not have to register to submit comments. And so you can remain anonymous to submit those comments if you wish. So down here is the plan comment tool. So if you want to leave your feedback, you just type it in. This is what I want to say, and you hit submit, and it will come up under here as a comment. So that's commenting on the plan there. Here are those idea tools that I was, oh, it says it's not available. That's another thing. If it says the site's not available, reload. Bang the Table is obviously doing some sort of update on their end because it's been doing this to me all day. Don't think it's really gone and just may have to reload it. So on the ideas for plan activation, here, that's, you know, my neighborhood wants to get involved with this. You can add your idea. So you can start by adding your idea here. When you go into add your idea, you can add it, you can add a short description, you can put it in here, and then people can upvote that idea. Or people can comment on it like, yeah, our neighborhood really doesn't actually want to get involved with that. Or, oh yeah, we've already submitted something. So people can comment and add to that as well. So we get a really good dialogue going on those implementation ideas. Gonna back up. And then help us name the plan. It's the same sort of tool here. So you can add your idea for naming the plan here. If you choose the greatest name in the whole world and nobody else wants to help name the plan, they can just, there's going to be a little thumbs up like, you know, like Facebook or anything else where you can just upvote that particular idea. So if we have one that gets a whole lot of votes, then that's probably what we're going to go with. Unless we have some feedback from community that says we shouldn't. So that's kind of what we're looking at as far as naming the plan. Again, if you suggest a name for the plan, we would like to be able to attribute you to doing that. So please, please give us your information so we can get back to you. However, I would say if you don't register for the site, you might want to do that through the OEQ email, because anything you put in any of these boxes, the plan comments or the ideas are viewable by the public. So you don't want to put your email and phone number out there if you don't want people from the public to have that. So just letting you know that. And then of course we have the phases over here where we are. You can kind of look back at what we did in each of the phases. And this presentation, I figured what I would do was listen and see if there were any questions that came up in this particular meeting and add those to the PowerPoint for the general public, but I'm going to upload that tonight. And for those of you that already have access to the Playbook site, I will also be sending a newsletter out through email to all of the participants tonight to let them know that this is live. The city is also looking to, we're going to start social media tomorrow. We're trying to get a banner up on the city website. There's been a lot going on in city communications. And so we're moving forward with that. But if if you want to send out the newsletter, just forward out that Bang the Table newsletter that I send. If you are currently on that site, please feel free to forward that on to whoever you want. We're trying to get this out to as many people as soon as possible. And then the last thing I want to talk about here is we have an online climate protection and resiliency plan orientation meeting. It's going to be very similar to what I just gave you today. Our consultants will be there. We will be kind of orienting people to the plan and answering questions at that point on how, if there's any questions on how to respond or type of information that's needed. We're hoping you don't make your comments on the plan in that particular meeting. Once again, we really like to capture as much of that as we can in the sites that we have so that we don't lose any of it. So, but it's just to get oriented to the plan and take questions. And you can just click this link, and it's a Zoom link, and Zoom, not Teams, and we can register you for that meeting if you can be there March 23rd at 6 p.m. If you cannot, or you know of a group that cannot be at this particular meeting but would be interested in receiving sort of an orientation to the plan, I will be making myself available to do that. Some evenings I do still have, did we unshare? Okay. I do still have several, I have kids at home, and so it's going to do the best I can with that, but I'll try to make myself accessible to groups so that we can do that. All right. That is all I had, and I talked for a really long time. So thank you for those of you that stayed with me.
Well, thank you, Laura. Looks like we all have plenty of homework. And so I would encourage all of the commissioners to take the time to study all these documents. because we're going to need to be well informed about their content, and commissioners that have had specific interests that you've been working on, some of the soils and agriculture activity that you've been working on, Marty, and Scott, some of your information about microgrids and distribution, power distribution, those things. You might look at the plan and see if you can make, see if the things you're working on are covered, or if you need to make a comment about their inclusion. And I guess I would say that for all commissioners, some of you I know have been very active in pursuing different strategies, and so we need the benefit of your input. We'll also be activating the work group to begin our annual report, and we will probably start out with an outline based on the recommendations of the short-term implementation plan. And so those of you who are going to be on that work group, and I see that they're not very many, is Molly present?
She's not here, Carol.
Present, but Nate, Molly, and Ben. Pardon me? Nate, Molly, and Ben had already volunteered to be on that work group. And if there are others that want to do that, if you would please let me or Rachel know, that would be helpful. And with that, I'm going to conclude anything I have to say. Do any other commissioners want to say anything about this report before we move on to the OEQ report?
This is Michael Kelly. I just want to just encourage folks. This public comment period is very important, and staff definitely do want to hear from you. So I just want to encourage everyone who is listening, either now or later as a recording is posted, to please take a moment to offer in your comments. It really does help for us to get as much feedback as possible, and so it really does take everyone taking a moment to share their thoughts. So just really want to reiterate that for everyone in attendance. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate that. Let's move on to the OEQ report from Andy.
Okay, thank you. So just to kind of stay in line with the climate plan discussion, just a couple of dates to be considered of. That would be the city's budget. So we've been working behind the scenes as much as possible, of course, to be prepared to implement the plan. So of course, been working with council on budget to see, what we can get come May 1st to start, right off the bat with implementing the plan. So with that, I want to say thank you for all of our stakeholders and groups that spoke up on behalf of OEQ. I certainly got a lot of feedback internally from city staff about those that showed up at the public meetings and spoke on behalf of OEQ and the budget. So I want to say thank you for that. I certainly appreciate that. With that, though, just a couple of dates to be mindful of. So the budget will go in front of the Finance Committee on the 23rd. So that's next week. And then from there, it goes to full council on the 25th. So if there's any comments to be submitted, you have just a little bit of time left to submit testimony in support of any particular budget. And I would certainly encourage you to do so. So we put together a budget for council on what we thought we would need to implement the plan in year one. So with that funding request, it also included a couple of position requests. So we're aiming high, we're hoping for the best, and we'll see how that plays out. But any particular support we can get from the community right up to this last stretch would be greatly appreciated. With that, I also want to mention an opportunity that kind of was floated by my desk recently about a grant opportunity between Google and ICLEI USA. So this particular grant opportunity is called Action Fund. And what they are looking to do is offer a grant of up to $1 million to up to 2 organizations, and it's specifically targeted towards nonprofits that particularly partner with cities that have a climate action plan. So this is almost perfect timing. At this point, they're looking for expressions of interest by April 11th. So if there is an organization out there that has some ideas on how to kind of jumpstart implementation of our climate plan and want to partner with us, I would certainly welcome an opportunity to have that conversation and at least provide links or contact with ICLEI to kind of feel that out in more detail. So, and while we might be in the middle of this meeting today, I might drop the link into the chat here if I can pull that up here before the end of the meeting. So a couple of opportunities there I just wanted to mention to everybody. Moving on, just a couple of updates on a couple of projects that we're working on behind the scenes. Solarize KC, that is our kind of our solar crowdsourcing program. We've been working on that. We've got a local coalition that's been working on that. We are working on the RFP for that project. We're going to be discussing the low and moderate income aspects of the campaign. I know there's a few folks on the call today that are participating on that particular campaign. So getting pretty excited. It looks like it's we got a lot of great partners on this project. We're looking at a launch sometime around probably June, somewhere in that time frame. So we're still working out those details. But for those that don't know, a solar crowdsourcing campaign is basically a kind of a group procurement program for solar installations. And this project will be available to the residents of Kansas City. Also, not just the residents of Kansas City, but probably of the metropolitan area. So, and not just the residents, but also commercial and nonprofits. So this is going to be pretty much in line with our climate plan, promoting renewables, and hopefully we're going to work out the low moderate income component of the program so that we can kind of bring these type of installations to folks in those neighborhoods. So keep you posted on that as that builds out. So things are going well in that area. Update on the energy code. So the energy code is also moving forward. City planning is in the process of putting their final edits on the ordinance that will be going to council. So I think overall it looks pretty promising. Where we left off is going with the 2021 IECC and also adding in the solar ready and EV ready to that particular code. So some promising things there. We're very excited about that as well. We'll see how that plays out in the engagement process. And city planning is still kind of discussing internally whether they want to have some stakeholder meetings or whether it's just going to go to council. So I can't get a definitive on that one way or the other. So we'll see what Councilman Boo, who's kind of taking the lead on that, will want to take on in that direction. So we'll again keep everybody posted if there are some engagement meetings prior to going to council, or whether it's just going to go to a particular committee and it'll just basically play out in the testimony from the public at that point. So that I was kind of told would probably be moving forward in the next week or two. So hopefully we'll see something very shortly on that. Kind of jumping over to the nuisance code. This is something that we've talked about in the past. Last year, I know several of you had kind of chimed in on various issues regarding the nuisance code and native landscaping. So our office was tasked with assisting the neighborhoods department on revisiting the nuisance code to be more amenable to natural landscaping. So with a variety of stakeholders, partners, we've been meeting for the past 2 months discussing various aspects of what should be in that code. So I think pretty soon we're going to be getting to a point where we're going to have something more concrete for our committee to edit and revise and hopefully get to neighborhoods and city council before too long, so that we kind of can train our code enforcement officers and such to obviously address this issue a little bit better than we've been dealing with it. So Again, a lot of good work going on the nuisance code. Speaking about, kind of skipped around a little bit, but our office, of course, you're all aware of the plans to move to neighborhoods. I think that's still more than likely going to happen. And our staff we're ready to go. We've been kind of preparing for it. We have a relationship with neighborhoods already and the director there. So it's going to be more or less seamless, I think, in terms of the transition for us. We have been short-staffed since, of course, Jerry retired, and we did lose an administrative assistant. That position became available as we promoted Rachel recently to an environmental officer position. So we fortunately, because the city has been under a hiring freeze for a fair amount of time, we finally got approval to move forward with those two positions. So hopefully before too long, we're going to have some additional staff to help us out. So it's well needed. It's been a long road. Laura's been doing a great job, as well as the rest of the staff. I have to commend them. It's been everybody on staff has been assisting with this climate plan to support Laura and her efforts, and all across the board. So bringing in some new folks to help us is going to be really, we're really looking forward to that. And I would say also neighborhoods and working with that department as well. I think there's going to be some synergies there that we might be able to generate kind of being in that department. So we're remaining optimistic, and we'll see how that plays out. So I think those are my highlights. I'll be willing to take some questions if there are some.
Are there any questions from the commission?
Scott, I just wanted to check when you get the chance. Yeah, Andy, I'd love it if you could post a link to that possible grant. I'd like to.
Okay, we'll do that.
Are there any parameters for the use of that grant that you could share? Anything that would help us think about who might be a beneficiary?
Well, basically, it's for nonprofits, and trying to look at the particular language that it used, but it talked about for the nonprofits to have the political will to advance climate action, climate equity, and just energy transitions. They wanted to align with the local climate plan, and that's why that partnership exists, because and we don't necessarily need to be a member of ICLEI, which I don't believe we are any longer, but so long as our climate goals are in line with the scientific targets, then they're okay with that. So, you know, they're looking for that partnership aspect of it. They want it to be very much supportive, to be a catalyst to the local climate action plan. Yeah, it's kind of vague, but they're leaving it pretty wide open. But it is pretty big dollars. It's $1 million that they're awarding to two particular organizations. So like I said, let me drop that in the chat so people can look at it in more detail. Unfortunately, they did an information session, which was this morning, and so I just missed out on it. So I wasn't able to get on that. They may post a video of it shortly. So, but yeah, that's. But I just figured, since this just came across the desk, I want to get it out there so folks can get a chance to look at that.
Thank you. Anything else from any other commissioners? Do we have any committee reports or liaison updates? Andy, did you go to the air quality forum?
I did. I caught most of it. I missed the very beginning of it, I believe. But actually, if Tom's here, I might defer to him. But there was some conversation about the kind of consideration about the air quality forum and a change of membership, or considering that. So I'm not sure if Tom is still on, if he wants to speak to that while we have him.
I don't know that Tom is still on.
Okay. Yeah, that's so the typical forum, you know, the air quality forum has membership from various government organizations in the metropolitan area. And it seems like they're looking to expand that. And so there was some kind of consideration of that.
Okay, for those of you who may not be familiar, the forum has representation from the 2 states, both the environmental departments and the transportation departments, from the counties, and from the large cities in the region. And I believe Kansas City has had 4 to 5 representatives most of the time.
Yeah.
And then they have representatives from the business sector and from environmental advocacy. So that's basically the makeup of that group.
Yeah, I think they're wanting to consider what format, is the current format of the Air Quality Forum useful? Is there a need to change the format to focus more on technical aspects or other issues? So I think it's just kind of, they haven't revisited the Air Forum for several years, and they're just kind of seeing if it needs to kind of go through some updating.
Right. And a lot of the business of the forum has been related to ozone historically, but we are now seeing more difficulty with fine particulates. And so there are some additional considerations before the commission. Anything else from anyone else? Any other liaison updates? Okay, I have, the old business is that we're going to be starting work on the annual report. And so any of you who want to be involved in that, if you'll please let me know if you want to roll up your sleeves, and we'll try to start that as soon as we study up on the plan. Under new business, all of you should have received conflict of interest forms from the city clerk's office, and those need to be returned by the 1st of May. Anything else under new business?
Carol, this is Carol Mackin.
Yes.
I did not receive a form, but I don't know if I didn't receive one just because I just filled one out last month. So if that's the case, I just wanted to let you guys know I had not received one.
I'm sure that the one you did last month is going to count. Wouldn't you think, Andy? I think I got mine I got mine a month ago at least. So
Yeah.
We just need to follow up and be sure that everybody gets theirs in. I don't think you need to worry about that. Anything else from commissioners? Any other new business? Did I miss any old business? Okay. Oh, Marty.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that there's at Cultivate Kansas City, a compost fest on Saturday, and we built a Johnson Sioux bioreactor there yesterday, and I will be talking about what it's about and why it's important, and there will be other people as well speaking about that. So it's from 9 to 3 or 4. You check the Cultivate KC website and get the particulars. Thanks.
Andy, is there anything we need to do about Show Me Green? Or is that?
Yeah, so it's good to go. So we got that ordinance through council. So we're going to be promoting that as part of our Earth Day activities. So, but yeah, that was approved here locally. So I believe the county's chimed in as well.
I know the other thing that I forgot to mention. Apologize,
Okay.
Andy, I'm focused on the plan. Just a reminder that the city is participating again in the City Nature Challenge coming up. So just gonna drop a link in the City Nature Challenge in here again for you guys to have. We're trying to beat St. Louis in participants this year. That's means we need over 1,000 people participating because they've been doing this for a while and they've got the groups. So once again, that's literally like the from April 29th to May 2nd. Download the iNaturalist platform to your phone. It's free. Use it to take pictures of wildlife and plants in the Kansas City region. It's like the 9-county mark region that is participating. And if you take pictures and you have iNaturalist during that time, it'll automatically be uploaded to our City Nature Challenge page. That data is then used by various groups to get an accurate count of city wildlife within cities all over the world. So it's pretty amazing, and we'd love to have you on board. When I realized I put the main link and not the city links. I'll be bugging you guys about it next month's meeting too.
Good. We can use those reminders. Anything else before we have remarks from visitors? Okay, then let's go ahead and have remarks from visitors. And if you will raise your hand, I do not have your names. I merely see your initials. So I may have Rachel help me identify who's raising their hand. But are there visitors who would like to make some remarks before we close the meeting? Well, it seems like we're really quiet. In that case, what I think we might want to do is we may want to adjourn a little early here and start our homework. It seems like we have a lot of homework after this particular meeting, and we all need to read through that plan, the draft plan, and spend some time working on it. Do I have Billy? We do have a guest. Billy, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll try to be quick. Actually, I mostly have a question. For once, want to echo the congratulations and thanks to everybody who's been involved in shaping this the Climate Protection Plan Steering Committee's draft Climate Protection Plan. Looking forward to commenting and just continuing this process, and appreciate this commission for being a voice in helping shape that legislation that made this all possible, and city staff and everybody's work. But my question is actually related to the proposed budget, and I guess it's really just a question if it would be possible to see any of the items like related to funding for climate plan implementation, so that it can be publicized and folks can be encouraged to submit comments on it. And I guess just wondering if there could be any more details shared related to the proposed move of OEQ. It's my understanding, viewing the budget hearings, that there was quite a number of folks speaking out on that, and that there were some council members who had expressed concern. So it seemed like it was still kind of a question. Just wondering if there was new information saying that this is kind of like a done deal. If you're able, Andy, to share more, just would appreciate it. But thank you again all for your service, and looking forward to continuing the conversation on the climate plan.
So just two comments, and unfortunately I can't go into any particular additional details. Essentially, all these negotiations between council members, you just never know where that's going to go. I'm kind of just reading between the lines on this one here. I just feel that I think council, they have so many things to consider in this budget. And I know there was a lot of great feedback that was provided. There were questions asked of us internally about this. But in terms of the direction of the council, I can't speak for them. Until they vote on the budget, we don't really know what's in it. And that's usually the first thing city staff does after it gets adopted. We're all scrambling for the budget books to see what got funded, what didn't. And so I'll be one of the first as well, looking through there to see, what's going to happen. At this stage of the game, we're just anticipating to continue with, that transitional move to neighborhoods. in reality, there's no physical movement for us. It just so happens we're on the same floor. And I've already been meeting with neighborhoods for the past 2 months as part of their executive team, just to kind of make sure things move, fluidly in the transition. So, it could certainly happen. I haven't got any indication it's not going to happen. So at this stage of the game, I just unfortunately can't say for sure one way or the other. In terms of the other question you had, I might suggest to you that when you're looking at the draft plan, look at the initial short-term strategies, the short-term implementation plan, because that's essentially what we did when we went to council with a suggested budget. So there's no particular formal document that was provided. It was more of a conversation and some feedback we provided to council on what we thought, if they were going to fund the climate plan, what kind of money would we need? So essentially what we did is we looked at the short-term implementation strategy. So, and also we referenced the climate declaration, the emergency declaration. Subsidy programs is kind of one that comes to mind. So keeping with the spirit of that particular resolution, that's what we sort of focused on, are things that were subsidy programs that would be in line with the climate plan. So that's about really all I can provide at this point.
We had another hand raised.
Yeah, Eslin's hand is raised.
Yes.
You're muted, Eslin.
Those darn mutes. Anyhow, my question also centers around implementation. So there's a draft plan, and then I understand that there's supposed to be a separate implementation plan. Is the implementation plan posted on the site along with the draft plan so that we can also evaluate that? Because there's, decision making, that needs to go into that, and there should be an opportunity for the public to comment on that as well. Not just short term, but everything that that has been put together with regards to the implementation.
Yeah, Eslin, that is on the page. So the one that has that I dropped the link in earlier that's on the Adobe site is the interactive plan. But if you go to the Playbook site, the Mobilize site, or you go to our OEQ page, that short-term implementation plan is listed in one of the important documents on the side for the climate plan, because it is just a PDF that you can access. I also just dropped the link to it in chat here. So if you just want to click on that, that'll open it up. And that is definitely on top of the plan. We definitely want people to review that short-term implementation plan. When you go look at it, it's got the big draft watermark across it too, because we're still working through that since the plan informs it and vice versa. So yes, please comment on that as well.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, anybody else that wants to make a remark or comment or a question? For those of you who are guests, we've talked a little bit about an annual report that the EMC needs to prepare. And what we actually provide input to in our annual report is the council's business plan, which is a 5-year forward look and becomes a foundation for future budgets. And so we try to provide input to them about priorities for funding, not just in the current year, but in the upcoming 5-year business plan. And so that's what we'll be working on. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the work group to do our annual report, just to give you a feel for what that document is. If there's no other comments, I think we can all go to work. I have a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, and a second.
Second, this is
All
Carol
right.
Mackin.
All right. Well, everybody, get busy with your homework.
Thank you.
All right.
Every-
Talk to y'all later.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.